Mhm. Yay, it is live now. I see a couple of people joining, so we can wait for a few seconds to begin. Um, it's really exciting. So right now I'm in Tokyo, and Rudra, where are you right now?
I'm in California.
You're in California?
Yeah, right now.
Uh, I didn't know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm visiting California. I'm actually still living in Chicago, but yeah.
I see. And Avi, you're in.
I'm in Hyderabad, India, South India.
Okay, and Araya?
I'm in Chicago right now.
Oh,
Okay, so
nice.
we're in all different time zones, but it's really exciting how we can do this event virtually. Um, I see 10 of you on joined right now. I'll probably wait for 1 more minute so that we can start with everyone on the same page. Um, Rudra,
So,
when
Rudra,
was
what are you
the...
doing in? Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna ask when was the last time you went back to DePauw?
Went back to DePauw. I actually was back at DePauw. I think I was back at DePauw. I was driving through. I went to Indiana to visit a few friends from DePauw in
Mm-hmm.
January, and then there's this really cool pizza place that's opened up in DePauw after I left.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
and it's amazing. So we drove 40 minutes just to go to the dock to grab a beer, and then we went to that pizza place, and we were at the pizza place for, yeah, we had dinner over there, and then we drove back. So 40 minutes just for the pizza. So I think that was the last time I was there, which was in January.
Ah, okay, okay.
Yeah, but for official like for any event in particular, I think the last time I went back was I went back for graduation a year ago. So last May. It's the class of
Mm,
18. Yeah,
mm. Yeah,
class of 19. Sorry.
it's been quite a while. Class of 19 is when Abby graduated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
think
Mm.
I
think
was
I
there
saw
for.
you in May
Yeah,
2019. But you also visited during Rush the previous year, I think.
I did. I
You,
did do that. I
uh,
try to go back at least once a year for something or the other, usually. So makes sense.
Great.
I
All
miss
right.
it too much to not go back.
And you're close nearby too.
Yeah, yeah. Chicago is not too far, which helps out for sure.
Yeah. Well, let's begin because I see a lot of you joined right now. So, hi everyone. This is Alumni Speaker Series um, number one, first episode, and we have Rudra Vishweshwar from class of 2015. Rudra,
Hey,
can you
everyone.
introduce yourself?
Yeah,
Where you're from, what you did back at DePauw, and what you're doing right now.
yeah, definitely. So, hey guys, my name is Rudra Vishweshwar. I came to DePauw, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed in 2011. I was 17 years old, so I wasn't allowed to open a bank account. But I was at DePauw for 4 years. I did computer science and economics as a double major and math as a minor. And I was also in ITAP and SRF. So I was very quantitative. I loved numbers. But apart from that, I also really loved the liberal arts experience and trying to be really involved in that. So I was always a DJ at WGRE and I did sports broadcasting at WGRE. I also was a presidential ambassador. I worked with the International Office of Admissions for the international students. So I was one of the first international ambassadors with UCA, and I know Abhishek was one as well later on. I was involved in theater. I was part of the theater, like the two of the different DePauw productions. One of them was Antigone, the other one was Swamp Dwellers. So really try to keep my experience really diverse, which was amazing. Which I hope anybody who's at DePauw is doing, because I think that's the best part of the whole experience and the liberal arts education. Um, right now, I graduated in 2015 and I moved to Chicago and I work as a right now as a senior technical architect at Highland or Technology Services Group, which just got acquired by Highland. And I've been working there since I graduated. So for the last 5 years now, I've been working at the same company. Yeah, and I got lucky. I mean, I didn't even go meet them at the career fair, but luckily we have some amazing faculty at DePauw, like Dave Burke, who had me reach out to them and go meet them for an interview when they came on campus. And through that, I went to visit them on their site in Chicago, fell in love with the company and the culture, and they offered me a job. I had a couple of offers from my internships, but this one made the most sense and kept me closer to like the Midwest, which is where I wanted to be at that point of time in my life. And so I took it up, and it was a 40-person company. Now, because of the acquisition, it's 5,000 people big, but the core team that I worked for was 40-person big, and it was amazing. So yeah, so been there for 5 years, still working there. We just got acquired, so changes are happening. I think that's a quick introduction of who I am.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you. So I want to encourage all the everyone to submit your questions through Q&A. Um, I think you can submit your questions anonymous, and yeah, so feel free to ask any questions you may have for Rudra. This seminar or this series is pretty much focused on H1B visa, but you can ask any questions, of course. Yeah, a little bit about myself and other ISAA team. I'm Yuka. I'm a class of 2017. I was a Peace and Conflict Studies major and honor scholar. Um, I also did a lot of activities on campus, but mainly to promote intercultural exchanges within international students and as well as between international students and American students. Avi?
Okay, sorry, I had a little bit of difficulty unmuting myself. But hi everyone, I'm Abhishek, class of 2019, the president of ISAA, and currently I work at BC Forward as a junior data analyst. While at DePauw, I was an international ambassador for my 3 years that I could be, and was a presidential ambassador, and I played on the golf team and did a whole bunch of stuff that was exciting. But glad you all could join us today. We'll let Rhea take it.
Hi everyone. My name is Area. I'm the current senior delegate for ISAA. I was the junior delegate last year. I'm an English literature and religious studies double major. And on campus, I'm involved on a bunch of different stuff. I've been a TA for Summer Institute for 2 years. I worked as a mentor. I'm working with international admissions right now, and as a W Center tutor. So I kind of like took on a little bit of everything. But yeah, I'm very excited for today's event and for the Alumni Speaker Series to get started.
I love how diverse all of us are. All right, so we have a couple of questions coming in. Keep them coming, guys. But I wanted to ask Rudra the first few questions that we've prepared. Um, so, did you always know that you wanted to work in the US after graduation?
Actually, no. I thought I was going to go to grad school right after college. I
Mm,
thought I was going to go do my master's and then look for a job. And that was my plan all the way till junior year. But again, I spoke to Dave, and who was my advisor at the time, and other computer science professors. And to me, they recommended that uh, a grad program is useful and important, but it doesn't add as much value to what career path I wanted to go in, which was a little bit more focused towards management and
mm,
not be just completely technical. And I enjoyed research, but I saw myself being more of a liaison with technology and business. And for that, they said it made sense from my experience to go and apply for jobs. And
mm,
so after I did my internship my junior year, I was like, okay, this makes more sense with my career path. And that's when I decided I want to apply for jobs my senior year.
mm.
Um, yeah.
So, how did you figure out that you wanted to go into management instead of just technical?
Right. So I think the liberal arts education really sets you up really well with your communication skills. You are always talking with people, whether that's in classes, whether that's with professors, whether that's in the clubs you do.
Mm-hmm.
And I really enjoyed that. And although I love coding, coding is one of my favorite things to do. I enjoyed my favorite part about coding was when I used to be on group projects with people,
Mm,
and we'd work together to build something and then present it and get some value out of that. And my dream always as a child was to be an entrepreneur. So I knew that at some point I needed to be a leader. And for me to get to that stage as well, coupled with my communication skills, the path that made the most sense was starting off technical to get my technical expertise, but also having the opportunity to grow and go into management and be more of a design architect rather than just a developer. If that made sense.
mm. I see. Um, so one of the things that I found pretty difficult upon graduation was to translate my DePauw experience into professional workplace language.
Hmm.
And we actually have a question around that. So how did your science research fellow experience contribute to your DePauw and professional journey?
Yeah, that's a great question, actually. So I think the one thing that I used was the experiences I gained with those experiences that I had at DePauw. For example, for science research fellows, I got the experience to work in an intensive research experience and improving my technical skills to eventually develop a product from start to finish. So when I was
Mm,
applying for my job, they asked me, "What are the projects you've worked on?" And I highlighted my science research fellows project to show them that I'm capable of taking a a project from start to finish and work with the team well and present that with posters and everything across campus. So that highlighted my skills as a team player, as a communicative leader, as well as the technical expertise with the product that I was delivering. So although wasn't necessarily, it was research and it wasn't something that exactly went into consulting, it gave them the skills that help me in consulting, if that makes sense. So I think that's something that I always tell anybody that asks me about how do I sell myself once I graduate from college is look at the skills that you've gained, whether that be in different fields. Like, so I used to always talk about my WGRE experience, which is why I spoke about it even today, because it's a unique experience that highlights that I love communicating and I do it
mm,
well. I'm not scared of an audience and not scared of going up front and talking to people about what I think I believe in. So that automatically highlights that skill while also giving them some context of like, oh yeah, Rudra, the guy who was in a radio station and did sports broadcasting, that's cool. Apart from the fact that he did computer science and economics. So
mm,
I think technically, so working in a company that hires from different colleges, when it comes to technical skills, sometimes we're a little bit weaker in some ways. We're not in depth in computer science all the way through. We have a whole variety of skills, and I
mm,
look at that as a strength because I'm able to, if I highlight those things while also having the skills of computer science in the background, it sets me apart from the crowd that's coming in. And a lot of times companies are looking for what's different about you and what differentiates you, and that's what you use your experiences to show. And science research fellows did that for me. Another
uh,
quick example of that was science research fellows requires you to do two research experiences. But once I knew I was applying for a job, I spoke to the coordinator at SRF, and I converted my internship, which was with H&R Block, into a research experience, even though it wasn't technically a research experience. I was like, for computer science, it's really hard for them to do this, and this is my career path. So yeah, I do want to graduate with this honors program, but I want to do this internship. So how can we make this happen? So I just had to write a paper at the end of my experience of how what I learned research wise based on this experience. So you can always work with your faculty and your advisors in the program to make you get the experiences that will set you up well for your career.
that's really cool. It really highlights how the DePauw can be really flexible for students,
Yep.
cater to students' needs. So, and I remember having a similar experience to that as well. So, the current students, I really encourage you to reach out to your professors and staff members around you. And also, what struck me a lot from your conversation was how so when there are a lot of applications, basically, recruiters are always trying to find something that makes you stand out, right? And in your opinion, it is to have diverse experience and how you can identify what exactly you learned from that experience.
Exactly. And one
Mm,
other thing I forgot to mention is what we do really well of is bringing in speakers and alumni and people on campus to give us talks. Interact with them after those talks and get their cards and reach out to them and tell them that you enjoyed their talk, because when you're looking for jobs, oftentimes everybody's looking for jobs, so it's really hard for you to kind of get through the door. The way you get through the door is somebody refers you. If somebody kind of tells them that, hey, I know this person. I mean, like I remember when I come back for the career fair every year at DePauw to recruit for my company. And every time I come back, there are some people that come talk to me, and then they send me a message afterwards saying, "Hey, I love speaking with you. This is what we spoke about." And I'm like, that's impressive, because if you do that follow up, I remember you because I meet 50 to 100 people a day, but if that email comes from maybe 5 to 10 of you, that matters. So
mm,
use that like like meeting to follow up with someone and build a network. And even if it doesn't work out at a job today, it will work out in the future. That's how you build your network. So make sure to kind of constantly interact with people. And if you don't get responses back, that's fine. Don't be bogged down by that. The more you reach out to people, the more you have an opportunity to get one of them to work out. So don't stop doing that just because you don't get a few yeses or a few responses. That can be frustrating, but we are, as international students, in a little bit of a disadvantaged position when we're applying for a job. So we do have to work that a little bit harder to get that job.
Mm.
Just to add on real quick
Sure.
before we jump to the next question, because I know we're getting plenty. Specifically with regards to like the honors programs, like what I do want to add on to what Rudra was saying, I think even like I was a management fellow, not an SRF, but it did help me get like that glimpse into what my potential career path could be, and also what all I could showcase as like my skills. And it does help students stand out in some ways, and it's very important, I think, for international students more so to create that path that helps them, get that first job. So especially if you're trying to get into a job, everything you do is trying to set yourself a little bit apart from the crowd, and I think the honors programs like provide a great opportunity for that.
Mm. Yeah, I agree. Every time I talk about my honor scholar research experience with, some people around there, they're always really amazed by what I have to say, and I think that's really, really important. There's not a question about this, but I really wanted to ask. Is so back in the pot, a lot of people told me that networking is really, really important, and I didn't get the true meaning of it until I graduated. So can you, because you mentioned that it's really important for you to communicate a little bit, like invest in a little bit more communication as international students compared to domestic students, and eventually you will have to have conversations with your recruiter to talk about your visa situation. So I want to ask you, like, how do you have any tips for that conversation? Do you have any tips for networking in general?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great question. So quick things, right? Like, don't go into any meeting looking for a job. Like, don't go like if somebody came up to me like I'm looking for a job, that immediately tells me that they're only talking to me because they want a job. That is not something that is like I realized that really late because I was talking to 10 people and like I was always like, hey, are you hiring? Are you hiring? Like that's not something that's gonna make you stand out. Be interested in what somebody wants is doing or what they're doing. So if you go for like we went for a talk with the ESPN's founder and I was like, hey, how did you start ESPN? Tell me a little bit about yourself. And when you talk to alumni about their experiences, their time at DePauw, or just anybody who you meet, just talk to them about them, build a connection first. And once you build that connection, be like, do you see a place where I could fit in? Or what do you think makes sense for my career growth? That is a better transition. Start a conversation before you go and ask for a job. I think that's really important sometimes, and we fail to realize that. Um, Second thing to do is use connections off connections. So uh, I don't know if you all know Hien, but Hien was somebody who graduated with me, and Hien has a friend at DePauw, or somebody who reached out to Hien, and then Hien was like, "I'm not in computer science, but I know Rudra, and I'll connect you with Rudra because he's a good friend of mine." And so that person reached out to me saying, "Hey, Hien put me in touch with you," and that immediately sets her higher in my priority list to talk to because I know she's coming from a known source. So if you know someone that's not in your field even, but knows has some friend that is, get them to connect you and just grab coffee or have a conversation on LinkedIn or just try to have a small touch base. And 8 times out of 10, you might not even get a response. But those 2 times that you do get a response is valuable, right? And so just keep doing that constantly. Even if you have a job, I still do that today. So if I meet anybody from DePauw or if I meet anybody, like, I will stay in touch. Like, for example, Abhishek, right? We don't talk often, but
Mm.
every once in a while, I'll message him and touch base with him and be like, hey, how's it going? I heard this is happening with your life because we have mutual friends that are close to the both of us and live close to each other. So it just keeps your network constantly active. And when you are looking for a job, then you have a whole network to reach out to, not just for yourself, but for other people as well. So that's simple. It's the first thing to do. Second thing to keep networking is make a LinkedIn, make it professional. It's very important to keep your LinkedIn up to date and professional. And get connections going, connect with people that you meet, interact, just and post on it, be active on it. I'm really bad at it. I'm not really great at it. So don't take me as an example. I realized it really late, but post on it. Like if you find an article interesting, post about it. If you find something that you're doing interesting, post about it. Create a website for yourself. Basically, you're the product and you're trying to sell yourself in some ways. So,
Mm,
what will make you more visible in people's eyes? So, those are the things that kind of set you up in terms of networking for people to reach out to you and be like, hey, your profile seems interesting. Let me talk to you about who you are.
mm. It's a great point. You're the product that you're trying to sell. How did you, let's see.
I guess we have a question about like H1b specifically, the next one.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
Yeah.
So,
but before we do that, you
okay.
want to just let's just I guess touch upon H1b like in general, kind of give everyone a bigger picture, I guess perspective on the process itself, because I'm not sure how much everyone knows about it.
Yeah. So H-1B is the visa that we all need to stay in the United States for work, right? There are other visas as well that you can opt towards. H-1B is the most common work visa for international students or international employees to get to live in the United States. So that is, it usually comes on a 3-year basis, and you keep applying for extensions on top of that. The way it works is it works on a lottery system. So you work for a company, your company applies for your H-1B, and then every around April or May, they look at the applications, they pick from a lottery, whatever they do, you either get selected or not, because they have a set number of H-1Bs they offer every year. So if you end up getting that, you've won, like not won the lottery, but you kind of won the H-1B lottery per se, and then you get a slip saying your I-797 saying you got the H-1B approved, and then that's good. That's good for 3 years. Okay. Um, after you graduate, usually, if you haven't done a STEM course, STEM is science, technology, engineering, and math. If you haven't done a course or if you haven't graduated with a major that's STEM, you get 1 year of OPT. So you have that one chance to get your H-1B sponsorship. Otherwise, you get 3 chances with the STEM extension. So you get the STEM extension for 3 years, so you can work on your OPT for 3 years, and you can apply 3 times for an H-1B. Your company has to apply for you. You're not applying for yourself.
Mm,
Um, there is okay. So when I applied, just to answer the question, since it's been there for a little bit from Troy, there when I applied, I was not making $120,000 a year. That's a really crazy like number. But I see where your question comes from because there is a lot of media news articles about that. But honestly, it really depends on your profession, your company that you're working for, and the place you're at. Somebody in California is going to make a base of 120 because that
mm,
is literally their standard of living.
The
Somebody
median, yeah.
yeah, somebody in Indianapolis is not going to make $120,000. So there's just a difference in the industries that you're working for. The government currently is having some. They're trying to pass some laws that will make that kind of harder, or make that like threshold a little bit higher or whatever. But just stay in touch with stay in touch with the news, and you'll know what that means. All right. But I don't think there's a hard and fast limit of 120,000 across the board. There's definitely caveats to it.
Yep.
Also, if you work for a nonprofit, it's different. Also, if you work for a university, it's different. So those don't count under the same quota. So
mm,
there are those caveats as well. But H-1B is that visa that you need. There are other visas like the L1. There's other visas like the O1, and then there's also the B1, I think, that are different specialized worker visas that you can also look into. But those aren't the more common ones. Those are special cases and different situations, and we can talk about them if you have questions about them. But the most common one is H-1B. It's also the most competitive one, and over the years, it's gotten even more competitive because there are a lot more people applying, and the number has stayed the same.
yeah. It really takes time, but I really encourage each of you to look into the rules because it's gonna protect you in the future. So yeah, and it keeps updated, so it keeps being updated. So you should definitely look into it. How
Just to
would
plug
you?
in real quick,
Sure.
Michael Chen, one of our new members, is also going to start a H1B blog potentially on our website. So we're gonna try and keep news up to date on that because it changes a lot. Like this
Mm-hmm.
120K, I know it's out there because there actually was a proposal put forth by like a Republican senator, I think, but it's not been accepted formally. There's no like due process that has been started for it. So
Yeah.
yeah, there is no hard and fast rule that you need to make 120K. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Thank you. So H1B, so OPT is something you can apply for, and you can get work permission from the government, and then you can work at any place that fits in your major. But H1B is something that your employer has to apply for you, right? So how would you frame that conversation with your employer?
Lawyer, yes. That's a great question as well. So you're an international student, and everybody that's employing you is familiar with the H-1B. If they're not familiar with it, if it's like a startup, you tell them that this is what the process is, and then they're like, "Oh, cool, I'm interested in that or not." It's a hard conversation, but it's something that's very important. And honestly, on your first call with your employer, it's something you should mention. Be like, "Hey, uh, they'll ask you like, do you have any questions after you do your first round of interviews or whatever?" And you'd be like, if they haven't spoken about sponsorship, you have to mention it. Be like, hey, I am an international student and I require H-1B sponsorship if you require it. If you don't require it, if you're like, I'm good with just working for 3 years, be like, I am working through my OPT, and if you guys think I'm viable to sponsor, please feel free to sponsor me, but I don't want that to affect my application. That's fine too. But you have to disclose your information saying that, hey, I'm an international student. I require an H-1B sponsorship. Is that something that your company offers? And that's important because there are companies that don't offer that. A lot of companies
Mm-hmm.
don't offer that, right? And that's a waste of your time and their time if you go through the whole process and you get a job and then they're like, we don't do that. Because then you're spending your year working for a company that you know you're not going to stay with at the end of the process at all. Right. So you have to just bring it up. It's a hard conversation, but I always bring it up with my first conversation with the recruiter, being like, I need sponsorship, or this is my visa immigration status. Um, is this something that you guys are willing to take on? Because this is something that is important to me. Um, Apart from that, there are other ways of going about that conversation. I know some of my friends that have companies, like contracting companies that they work for, who then contract them out to other consultants and stuff like that. So those people just sponsor the H-1B and stuff. So you can always reach out to those. But I'm not very familiar with that process, but I know I know friends that have done that. So if you have questions about that and are looking to do that, then I can put you in touch with them. But directly, straightforward, you just tell your company, I'm international, I need sponsorship. Um, is that something you guys offer? That's it.
And I think for non-STEM majors, it's actually a conversation that the employer themselves initiates. So you don't necessarily even have to initiate it if you are on 1 year OPT and are looking for, the H1B. I think for the STEM majors, slightly different because you have the 3 year window. But yeah, at least when I was going through the hiring process, every employer brought it up for me. So I never had to bring it up on my own.
Right. And honestly, nowadays, even in online portals, when you're applying for the job, it's an
Yeah.
option on there. Do you require sponsorship? If so, what is your status? That's it.
Mm. Yeah, and to add a little bit, so I still encourage everyone to go to career fair and everything and have a great conversation with the recruiter because you never know where that conversation can lead to. So don't ask them like, "Oh, do you hire international students?" in the very beginning or up front. Just have a great conversation. And ask them at the end of the conversation if they say no, that's fine. Like you can still ask them, oh, do you happen to know anybody that might be interested in looking into my qualifications? Because that can really is a start of networking.
That's a great point. Again, you can just reiterate that never start a conversation with the business tone, usually. That's just not like, ask somebody how they're doing, because that immediately warms them up. Even when I work in my daily day, if I have something I need from somebody, I'm like, hey, how are you doing? Good. Let's talk about this. So
Mm-hmm.
have that initial warming up feel before you go into the heavy hitting questions, always.
Yeah. And what if a company is interested in sponsoring a work visa, but it's their first time sponsoring?
Yeah, great question. So my company was the first time they're sponsoring a work visa when I joined them. They were unfamiliar. They were like, yeah, we will do that. We just don't know what the process is. So then I tell them that, hey, we need an immigration lawyer, and it costs a certain amount of money. So I just did the research for them, and then the lawyer took care of it after that point. But even after that, if they need more information, there's a lot of resources available online telling companies what they need to do. But I have never seen anybody, you have to apply with a lawyer. So they need to hire an immigration lawyer that will handle your application. And the lawyer will tell them what all documents they need. And then you just provide all the documents to your employer, who will then provide it in turn to that lawyer. So
Mm-hmm.
it's very possible. It's very easy to do. It does come with that overhead additional cost of a lawyer.
Mm.
I have some friends that have sometimes spoken to their company and be like, hey, if you're willing to sponsor me, I understand that that's not part of the thing. I'm happy to help out with my salary to pay for the lawyer or whatever. So you can have that kind of negotiation to be like, hey, don't reject me because you have to pay for a lawyer. Instead, you can use my thing for doing that or whatever. But that's case by case. See if it comes up as something that they even bring up. Don't bring it up yourself. Um, Mention it up front, like when you're having the conversation, be like, it's, I mean, I understand, like, I appreciate you even considering hiring me. I value that you are thinking about it, because if you are, it's possible. I know people that have done it. We'll just need to get an immigration lawyer, and it shouldn't be that
Mm,
hard.
Yeah,
thank
just to
you.
add on to that, most bigger companies almost always have those in-house people with the expertise, and the mid-sized companies may not have a general attorney, but they contract with like legal firms, and
All the time.
almost all companies get some type of legal advice from outside. So they definitely have the connections. It's all about putting forth the question.
Yeah, we have a lot of international alum working in US companies as well. So in those cases, the chances are those companies are more than willing to hire international students a lot of times. So you can definitely reach out to alumni and then start a conversation with that person, and then eventually reach out to the HR person in that company as well.
Mhm. Yeah, and if there's a company that's sponsoring for the first time, that's actually really good for you,
Mm,
because if your company doesn't have any international employees and they are trying to sponsor you, that makes your application stronger just a little bit, because they're not part of this farm that's hiring hundreds of international students. So even though it's a lottery system, it does make your chances a little bit better if you're the only person applying from that company.
mm. Um, so at any point, did you feel like the process was too complicated? Like, were you almost like, did you
Uh,
ever like try to give up?
uh, okay, so if you're asking about the H-1B process,
Yeah.
no, because you're not really doing anything in the application. You're
Mm,
literally just providing documents constantly to your employers that they ask for, and you're reaching out to professors to give recommendations, all that stuff. So, as long as you're good with having all your documents in place and giving them to your employer, it's not hard. You're not really doing anything else. It's stressful when you're waiting for the decision, because you just don't know if you're going to get it or not, right? Like, you're waiting in this like unknown of like, can I continue to live my life? Can I travel outside the country to visit my family? Can I do all these other things that aren't really related to your application per se, but add a level of uncertainty to your day-to-day life, if that makes sense.
mm,
So that is the uncertainty part. That's the stressful part. The other stressful part being finding a job with somebody who sponsors you, right? So when you're on your OPT, necessarily you don't have to have a job immediately. You have like a certain amount of time for you finding a job. So I have friends that have been really stressed while finding that job. But once you have a company that sponsors you, and once you have to just provide documents, that application process itself is not stressful. And you just have to remember that after that application is submitted, it's not in your hands. So no matter what happens, it wasn't your fault if you got it or not. It's a luck of the draw, right? And you have to kind of look at your backup options constantly. You have to have plan A, plan B, plan C every time that you have anything happening. So my plan A was obviously the H1B. My plan B was my OPT extension, and my plan C was grad school, because I was always thinking about it. So I had three options every time, and looking into my H1B, which made it easier for me to wait for my decision when it came out, knowing that the worst case I have is applying for an OPT extension. And if that also doesn't work out, then I have a grad school to go to. And that gave me a little bit of comfort and solace and prevented me from stressing out a lot more than I should have. Also,
yeah,
talking to
I
people that
got
have gone through the process helps a lot. So
you.
do
Mm,
that.
thank you. If
Mhm.
you don't mind me asking, have you renewed your H1B visa already?
I have, yep.
Okay.
So worked for 5 years. So I was really, really lucky. I got it on my first attempt. So on 2016 is when mine got approved. So I had mine till 2019, and then it got renewed till 2022. And I went back home in January or December last year and got my new stamp or whatever. Renewals are pretty straightforward. It's not really, you don't do a lot. They just have your company that's given you a sponsorship, they just kind of reapply for you a little bit, but as saying that you already have an H1B. Now, when you're renewing, you're not part of the same lottery system anymore. So don't worry about that. You're not there's hardly, like, I've not heard of anybody that, like, I guess, okay, let's rephrase that. Uh, you're not part of the lottery system, so you're most likely going to get your renewal. Having said that, um, depending on the current political climate and the government, they are reviewing your application still. So there are times that they provide an RFE saying that, are you actually doing what you're saying you're doing? And is this actually something that we didn't consider 3 years ago that we're just going to consider again right now? So there is this RFE thing that might come up, which is like a request for evidence, which only means that they just need more paperwork.
Mhm.
And it it will go through mostly unless they feel like there's actually something that is not something that makes sense to them and it's not what you say you are or whatever of that sort. But as long as you are doing what you need to do, usually it's fine. I've had a lot of friends get RFE. I got an RFE. But 1 week later, once I provided them my document, we were good. They just sent it over. So don't be worried if you get an RFE. It's just them asking for more evidence. That's it.
Great.
Thanks.
So a few more. I know we're close to time, and there are a lot of questions right now. Just so if it's like too much of a personal question, I encourage you to reach out to Rudra after this. If it's too much of a general question that you can easily search on Google, then please do it. I'll try to pick the questions that are probably most relevant to a lot of people.
I'll also keep my answers a little bit shorter to get through more of them. So let's do that.
It's fine. Just to kind of, I guess, going back to your experience, because I think people are really actively looking for a job or internship in the US, and considering the current climate, both politically and other situation going on, it's been even more difficult for international students to find a job. So what would you recommend for students to do either on campus? Like, are there any experience that you were so glad that you did, or any experience that you wish you did on campus?
Yeah. I've already spoken about networking, but let me tell you the easiest way to get a job with a sponsorship: internships. That always translates to jobs. Okay. So every summer you have, freshman year, it's really hard to find a job that's valuable. Sophomore year and junior year are your big years. Find jobs with companies that sponsor. Okay. Because if you find those jobs with companies that sponsor, no matter how big or small they are, most times, 9 times out of 10, an internship almost always translates into a full-time job. And that was a key thing to my whole like senior year, is because of my internships I had full-time offers going into my senior year, which made my whole application process a lot less stressful. Now, if like so, sophomore, junior year internships is crucial. Look for companies that will give those internships and start applying early and often and networking quicker, because when you get those internships, even quickly you'll get that full-time job and you'll have that sponsorship and you'll have that fallback option, even if you hated that internship. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, like, there'll be internships that you don't like, but to just have that safety net that if you have to go back to that until you find another job that you like is an amazing feeling.
Mm.
So internships are crucial. Do that as much as you can. I did not do one my sophomore year, but I did one my junior year, and then I did one part time my junior year, second semester. Those were full time offers that I was able to get through those internships. So do those. Apart from that, experiences that will help me get a job more. All right, we're being blunt here, right? So quantitative jobs are easier than non-quantitative jobs. So if you are somebody that is interested in quantitative stuff, computer science is a field that is much more likely to find you a job than something that's not a computer science. And I say that because um, we all want to follow what our passions are and what we love. It's important to do that. If you're going to do that, understand that you'll have to work a little bit harder to find the job that you're looking for than somebody else. And don't feel dejected when somebody else gets a job, because their industries are just different and situations are a little bit different. So diversify your portfolio a little bit, because if you can do, I had somebody who did a computer science minor and get a job in a computer science company after they did a music major and in math major, right? Abhishek raising his hands, I'm sure like he knows what he's talking about. But like just add that quantitative stuff to your major minor thing, because it just sets you up for your first job. Once you have your first job, you can leverage to do whatever else you want after that point of time. So in a competitive market for work today, people that are looking to sponsor H1Bs are people that understand the value of those H1B students and employees. And what makes you set yourself apart is what's important. And that's kind of something that is in a high demand situation, something that people are looking for. Another thing is if you have some contacts of friends who or family that know jobs that will hire you and are looking for a certain skill set, do everything you can to build those skill sets up during college. And the if you're looking for a technical job, start doing stuff that other people in bigger universities are doing. Like if you're in, I didn't do this and I regret it, but something that I think would be useful is starting up a GitHub page, work on personal projects, build a portfolio if you're an art student. Like there are just things that you need to do that will make your portfolio as strong as somebody applying from a bigger school that has a little bit more in-depth knowledge in that field, because we get a Bachelor of Arts in that major that we're looking for.
Great. Yeah, that's what I hear from, especially from computer science majors at DePauw, that how it's really important to always look out for more opportunities out there. Always do your personal projects so that you can match up with the bigger university students.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah.
so would you say the same thing for your LinkedIn profile as well? How you mention your diverse experience as well as mention your personal project?
Yeah, a quick thing here. When I say diverse experience, don't mention your hobbies as the first thing on your LinkedIn. Not important. It's important when you're having that interview, you bring it up, because then that's a conversation you're happening. But when I'm looking at somebody's resume, I'm looking at their job experiences, their GPA, the most highlighted things that is extremely impressive about you. Although my WGRE experience isn't crucial, I can't put that as my first thing because the tech company that's hiring me doesn't really care that I can do radio broadcasting.
Mm,
After I get my interview and I bring it up, that's a conversation that makes me step apart from them. So for the first step, when you're working on your LinkedIn profile and stuff like that, that bio page that you write, like the about section, make that interesting. Use metaphors, use like quick things over there. Don't make it generic. And your experiences should be your internships, your GPA. You need to highlight it if it's good. Courses you've taken, only the hard classes. Don't put intro to computer science if you've got a data structures thing, because obviously you've done intro if you're doing compilers. So make sure you're highlighting your more important classes over the intro classes.
mm. I agree. I do recruiting job for my company right now, and the most I spend on one resume is probably 15 to 20 seconds because I can easily see if the person is qualified or not within that second. So I really encourage you to have a clean resume with very strong experiences and highlighting your experience so that you can tell the employers through your resume how qualified you can be and how fit you can be in that position.
Right.
How many companies
Really
did you
quickly,
apply?
sorry.
Oh yeah, sure. Go ahead.
I just sent in the chat two things, Overleaf and Latex. This is overleaf.com, and is this website that allows you to make really cool resumes using Latex. It's really simple to use. You can get like these templates already existing on the internet that you can just
Mm-hmm.
import into Overleaf. And those resumes stand out a lot more because it's a little bit well designed. It's got like Elon Musk, all these big people have used this stuff to make their resumes. So look into it if you're looking to make your resume stand out. I know we use Word and PDF, but everybody's using Word and PDF. Make yourself stand apart by using Overleaf and Latex, because when we're going through recruitment pairs and somebody's using bullet points with shading, I'm like, that person knows what they're doing. Give them the
Yeah.
job. So
And really, really,
Yeah.
really go to the Hubbard
Just
Center.
yeah,
just to add to that, there's a lot of companies now, especially when you apply online, they put your resume in like this applicant tracking system that literally like scores your resume relative to other people, and it looks for like buzzwords and other key things that they need for the job. So if you don't pass that initial test, it never makes it to an actual recruiter who actually looks at it, right? And I think the biggest thing you got to shoot for, at least in entry level positions, is kind of passing that electronic test. So do anything you can to make your resume like, I think, pass that ATS system, applicant tracking system.
Yeah,
okay, yep.
I agree. Yeah, and I was gonna ask how many companies did you apply for your first internship and also for your first job?
Yep. Internship, I applied to 12. I was lucky that I got one within those 12 really quickly, and it was a company that I was really looking to get into. So I stopped after that point. For my job, I only applied to 20, but only 20 because I had offers before I went into my senior year. So I was like, once I got like 3 or 4 offers, I became apathetic, and I was like, I have offers. I'm happy with these. I just stopped applying as much. Um, and I was really lucky. Trust me. I have had friends apply to over 115 companies, and 3 got back to them. Maybe 2 got back to one of them. Um, that's the rate you're going to be applying at, is 100 companies probably. Just put that number in your head, and if you apply to 100 companies, you're going to have one door open up for sure. So do that. And if that doesn't work out, let me know and I'll change my whole thing about it. But 100 companies is what you need to go for when you're applying for a full-time job. If you don't already have an offer or anything of that sort that you're happy enough with.
Just to add to that, I think of the 100, you want the ratio of how many you're applying through like referrals to be super high. Maybe like 30% of that 100 should probably at least through referral.
Yep.
Because this year, especially with COVID and the recession and a whole bunch of political factors, I know people who literally applied to hundreds and they still like struggle to get past that first or second interview.
Yeah.
Just because they're international, like nothing else. Like
no.
they might have,
Just to add on to what Abhishek is saying, this sounds complicated, but make a spreadsheet of the companies you're applying to, the people that have referred you, and where your position's at. And if you don't hear back from them, if you've had referrals, ping your referral again, saying that, hey, I applied, I haven't heard back in a little bit. Can you get back to me on this thing? It's just quick and easy to just ping people because sometimes your resume gets lost in the mix of all the resumes. And it also just helps you build your network. So once you have it a little bit organized, it'll make your life a whole lot easier. Trust me. Like, I had a friend that had them. I mean, I had a friend who gave me their spreadsheet that I then used, which was job, referral, place in line, and color coded as to yes, no, maybe. And I also ranked them for my own sanity. You don't have to do that of which ones I wanted to go to more, which ones I want to go to the second, third. So the more organized you are with this stuff, it makes your life a whole lot easier and less stressful, even though it is a lot of work.
Yeah, to add last thing. So I remember in my first year, somebody, it might have been you, Rudra, but somebody told me that to create a spreadsheet of all the people that you have networked with from your first year so that you can always pin that person to catch up and maybe ask for a referral in the future.
Yeah. Quickly with networking, if you're in a fraternity sorority, if you're in clubs, when you're looking at alumni, look at people that have done that experience with you. Reach out to them based on that experience, and they'll respond to you better.
Yeah.
Right.
And there is a comment, Hubbard Center is only good for study abroad in my experience. Yes and no. So a lot of I worked at Hubbard Center, and a lot of times I saw a lot of resume where they couldn't highlight their experience better. And Hubbard Center is there for you to help you. It's really up to you how you utilize the resources, but they're also the people who graduate from other universities and know people. So if you can connect with them so well, they can refer you job potentially. So yeah, just to add that.
And really quickly, that seems a little negative, right? Like someone like Hubbard Center is there as a resource to help you get a job. They're not going to give you a job. So you have to do the work to apply to companies and get your connections and networks going. But once you do that work, and if you want to make your resume stand out, and if you want somebody to bounce ideas off of, to have that constant resource to do interview prep with you. I know I went to Hubbard Center and said, "Hey, I have a phone interview with this company. Can you do a mock interview test with me?" And they sat me down and did a mock interview test with me. So those are things that aren't really tangible to you getting the job, but it enables you to be a little bit more prepared. So they're preparing you to get the job. They're not giving you the job. So if that's the intention you're going with, then yeah, maybe they're not as helpful.
Yeah, because they do like the flash resume reviews, they provide the rooms, like you can do a lot of stuff. I use a lot of their resources, but they didn't directly help me get that first job, but a lot of the small stuff kind of was, climbing those steps to the first job.
Talk to your professors and your peers and your internships if you're looking for those jobs, because those are your referrals. Hubbard Center is to get you the job experience, like interview ready, and get you interview ready for that thing. That's how you need to look at that.
And just to add to that real quick, I know that they're actually currently working actively to try and improve their international student, like companies that hire international students also. Like that's something that's in their pipeline because they know that's one of their weaknesses. So they are aware of that as well.
Thanks, guys. So a few more questions. Did you always know what position you wanted to be in? Like what kind of fields did you look into and what kind of positions did you look into?
I knew I wanted to be computer science with a business focus. So the things that made the most sense to me was technology consulting and or working for a smaller company. as a developer. The reason I say that is because I value the fact that if I worked for a smaller company because I went to a smaller school, I would have more access to higher up management and resources to use them as my mentors. In a
Mm.
bigger company, when I did my internship, I kind of got lost in the crowd, and I didn't want to be lost in the crowd, which is why I was looking at smaller companies. I necessarily wasn't picky in my role or the company that I wanted to go to. Like I know some people are very picky about I only want to work in robotics or deep learning or AI or front end development, back end development. I wasn't because I was like, I learned how to learn at DePauw. So no matter what field I'm put into, I can pick it up and I can learn. So I wasn't picky in that. If you are picky on that, that is something that is totally personal. Um, I had a friend who was very, very focused on doing autonomous cars, and he only applied to companies that did self-driving cars, and he worked hard for it and he got it. So understand what your passions are and what you're looking for. But for me personally, my biggest things I was looking for was probably consulting or smaller companies to help me reach my goals of going into more project management, product management, design architecture personally. Uh, Again, oftentimes, if that's something that is important to you, just talk to somebody that is in that field and how they made that decision. Um, and your first job is not supposed to be your only job for the rest of your
Mm.
life. So get that first job, and if you realize you don't like it, you'll know what you like. At least you'll know what you don't like. You'll know at least closer to what you like, and then you can start looking at other jobs that might make more sense with your skill set. So it is your first job. You're not supposed to get it first right all the time.
Yeah, I remember one of the alum, she was from China and she was a psychology major, graduated before me, and she got a job at technology company as a HR, and she really fell in love with whole technology stuff that was going on within the company. So she applied for grad school in that field, and then she eventually started working for another company in a different field. So you can always reroute your career as well. But do you have any advice for students who are looking for, we've touched on a little bit about this, but who are looking for sponsorship in the fields that don't typically sponsor? So
Yeah,
STEM usually sponsors, right? But not in like say literature or religious studies. I'm talking that
yeah.
area, but yeah, peace and conflict studies.
Right, right. That's a great question.
Mm.
STEM also doesn't always sponsor. There are companies that do sponsor, and it's a little bit
Oh
easier
yeah.
to find those jobs.
Mm.
But in fields that don't sponsor and in fields that are more competitive, a little bit more in
Mm.
the humanities end of things, um, look for nonprofits. Honestly, those are some of the easiest ways to get a sponsorship because those don't go against the lottery. It's almost a sure shot
Yeah.
sponsorship. Uh, Other thing is universities. If you work for a university, it's way you can get an H1b. It's not like that's not in the same lottery system either. So those are
Those
your
are
first two.
cap exempt, right? Cap exempt
Exactly.
H1Bs
There's a
category.
cap
Yeah.
exempt H1Bs. Exactly. Right. So those are your top two things that you can immediately look at. Apart from that, maybe look at smaller companies, I would say, that will value your skill set more to do those first time sponsorships for you. That's really important. And I would recommend probably talking to alumni more frequently to get those connections going to find companies that will sponsor you. Um, and last thing I would like to say with that is if you like music and you can do your music, you want to do a job that's involved in music, but you can kind of couple that a little bit with data analytics in the background, just kind of keeping that data analytics role will make you a little bit more sellable to get your music job, but also provide you a role in a company that's willing to sponsor you. So don't just stick to the singular focus. Try to have a couple of things that can work well together, and look for jobs that are kind of niche in that respect. Because if it's a little bit of a niche job and you're one of the only people that possesses that skill set, it makes you way more valuable to be sponsored.
Thank you. So we have 6 minutes left,
Mhm.
and I guess there's a presidential debate on tonight.
I'm
So
going to bed right after this.
yeah, so I know you're not technically in the business or finance field, but do you have any advice or do you have any, yeah, in
Yeah.
general?
Business finance field very competitive. You gotta apply sooner, faster. Management fellows, if you can do it, do it. Really, really crucial to get those jobs because that kind of guarantees you an internship, and that automatically kind of gives you the opportunity to leverage that internship into a full-time position.
Mm,
Speakers that come to campus that are related in those fields, talk to them. to do those jobs. I'll start talking because I think Abhishek is more involved in the financial side of things as well, right? He
Yeah,
knows
so
more
I
about
can
that.
add a little bit. I was in the management fellows program, econ major with a comp sci minor. I did 3 internships, all on the business and finance side of things, but I ended up in a technical field, my first job. So it's not fully technical. It's like semi-business, semi-technical. So it's almost ideal. I just didn't even know that this could have been such a great first job because I kind of grouped my computer science skills with my econ background. And my first job actually ended up being more computer science than econ. But now, because it's a smaller company, because I know people within the firm and I've built those internal relationships, I'm able to kind of switch my role into something that's a little more on the finance side because I do enjoy that as well. So I think, as Rudra is saying, it actually is a little more competitive if you want to get into an investment banking type of role or wealth management and stuff like that, only because most finance jobs have like these associate programs that they need guaranteed 2 year and 3 year commitments because they have like a set route and set program. And if you cannot guarantee them that, they are very hesitant to hire you. That's why they like uh, aren't very, let's say, diverse and inclusive, like at least the bigger companies. So that's why if you have that comp sci and econ double major, what it gives them is an opportunity to, let's say, hire you in those programs because then you get the 3 year, STEM OPT. They know that you can finish their associateship or whatever, and kind of set yourself apart like that. But it is, I
Doesn't
think,
even
more competitive,
Yeah, it doesn't even have to be
slightly
computer
more
science.
competitive.
If it's math, that works too. So just do something
Yeah.
that's like makes you a little bit of a STEM thing.
Right.
Uh,
Anything that falls under STEM.
And lastly, also, if you look at sometimes, especially in the finance industry, if you're looking at consulting, that's something that we do really well at, especially at DePauw, is going into more consulting. So you're doing financial consulting. That really helps because we already have the communication skills to do that.
Mm.
Also, if you're looking at bigger companies in this field, particularly that have multinational presence, what you can talk to them about is, hey, if it doesn't work out, I'm willing to go to a different part of the country or the world to work for you, and I can come back on a L1 visa or something of that sort in the future. So
Mm.
it kind
Yeah.
of it kind of gives you that kind of flexibility of saying, hey, I'm flexible to move and then come back in the future. Makes it a little bit more sellable and gives you another kind of bargaining chip, if you may.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because some companies definitely want to hire you, and the more cards you play and the more like easier you make it for them, the better it is. I know that actually is a little bit ridiculous because you're trying to sell yourself more than needed, and you might look at your peers and be like, okay, they're like not even trying half as hard as I am, but it is unfortunately the truth. As an international student, you have to play almost every card that you have
Yeah.
and not to hold back when it comes to hiring.
I just want to mention that I've known Rudra and Abhi when they were at DePauw and or since they're at DePauw and everyone knew them because they knew how to build network, they knew how to build friendships, and I think that's how they approach to job job hunting and everything as well.
Yeah, and just to add to mine, no need to be extremely social and extroverted or anything of that sort. Just network professionally. If that's what you do, that's what you do.
Hmm.
It was awesome to have that experience. I was friends with a lot of people. That was awesome. But the job interviews that I got was from people that I networked with professionally. So do that
Mm.
if you're looking for jobs. Um,
I know
Go
it's
ahead.
almost time, but I
Yeah.
think we have a 10-minute extension that was allowed by the alumni office. So there is one question I think which is kind of relevant to our topic about the green card. You want to talk a little bit about like the dual intent nature of H1B?
Yeah. So once you get your H1B visa, the next thing your company does for you is they apply for your green card. So as soon as you get your H1B, you apply for a
Upon your
green card.
request, right? Upon your request,
You request it, or they bring it up, but you want to request
right?
it, right?
Yeah.
Because a green card is nothing but your permanent residency. So once you get a permanent residency, you're a permanent resident of the United States. You can move companies. You can be there without a job. You're kind of, in lack of better words, safe from deportation in some ways, right? but it's also allows you the flexibility of finding any job you want. You're not kind of ridiculed about like sponsorship or anything of that sort in the future. So that's what a green card is. So once you get your first H1B, once you get your H1B, you apply for the green card literally the year after. And the green card process is a little bit different. So again, the company applies for you. They find out all documents you need. It's a little bit more documents because they're kind of trying to set you up as a permanent resident of the country. This is a little bit different from country to country. So think of it as a queue line. If I'm from India, there's a lot of people applying to get a green card from India. If I'm from China, there's a lot of people applying to get a green card from China. So the queue for that is a lot longer. So the processing time for somebody from like me to get a green card is years, like 10, 15 years even maybe.
I think it's a decade right now. That's the
right.
average.
It's a decade,
It's 10
right?
years.
So that's long. That doesn't. But if you're from another, like I have a friend Renee who also graduated from DePauw in 15. He's from El Salvador. He got his H1B like 2 years after I did. He applied for his green card the year right after his H1B got approved. He got it within a year. So if you're from a country that does not have that many applicants, it makes it a quicker process. If you have a country so it's not the same pool like the H1B pool where everybody gets picked from the same lottery hat. You have your own kind of, every country has their own like line of sorts. So that could be a plus or minus depending on what country you come from. But once you get it in the green card process as well, there are different stages. So if you get past stage 2, which is your I-140, once that is approved, and after 180 days of that approval, then you have your number in line. Okay, so basically what that means is if I was to move jobs tomorrow, I don't have to restart the whole green card process anymore. I just keep my number in line and it just gets kind of ported over to the new company, and it continues on. Now, while my green card is processing, and if I haven't crossed my first stage or my second stage, and then I move my company, then my green card process, I have to reapply for my green card. So again, the new company has to apply for that green card. So that's something you're going to need to keep in mind when you're applying for a green card or you're requesting your company to apply for your green card, is that kind of does keep you with that current company for however long your green card stage 2 process has to finish. Otherwise, there's no point in applying for it. And it is an expensive thing. So be sure of that before you ask for somebody to apply for your green card. Especially for somebody coming from liberal college, we don't want to break those relationships from companies that are doing those things, because there are only a few of them doing those things. So that's the green card process. There's a lot more to it. If you have questions about it, feel free to reach out to me after this. I can talk to you more about those as well.
And there's one last question I can add on to that kind of. PTK is asking about leaving the US while you're on OPT and H1B. And I personally never left the US while I was on OPT. I know my sister has left while she was while she has an H1B. Actually, she's coming home today on an H1B, and her fiance is on an OPT. So I know people that have done it.
Yeah, I did it. I went back home with my OPT. I hadn't even started my job. As long as you have an employer's letter saying that you're hired, coming back in the country shouldn't be any problem. If you have your H1B and it's been stamped and you have a validity date of a certain date after that point, and you're still working for that same company, you're fine. Travel, go back home, come back whenever you need to. If your visa has expired and your OPT is under a cap space, so imagine my OPT expired in June and I'm waiting till October for my H1B application to come through, you don't want to travel during those times, because at that point you don't have any valid status, so you're not able to come back into the country. So be smart about it. If it makes sense, do it. If it doesn't, so if I was on a student visa and my student visa expired in 2015 because I graduated in 2015 and I was doing my my OPT extension of STEM, and I was in the country on 2016 still on my OPT extension, I would now want to travel back home, because when I come back, I don't have a valid visa to get back into the country. Some countries, like El Salvador, I know because of Renee's experience, will restamp your passport with an extended visa. Other countries don't do that. So check with your lawyer, check with your country situation, whether that's something that is possible. But be careful. I mean, it is a weird political climate. So
on the side of safety, right?
exactly.
The safest option.
I understand it's frustrating, but if you have to value what is more important at some points of time. Like, for example, my sister is engaged in about to get married in February, but I'm still erring on the side of caution of whether I need to go back for that. It's my sister's wedding. I want to go back for it. But will the current COVID situation coupled with my H1, the current political climate, enable me to come back in the country? Is something I'm considering. So always make that I'm sure everybody's pretty aware of that. Just be conscious of it. Talk to a lawyer if you have some friends who are lawyers, or talk to your company if you're hired by somebody to ask them if it's okay for you to travel. Always do that before you leave. Don't just leave without talking to your company, ever.
Well, thank you so much for all the valuable insights. I learned a lot too. So thank you everyone for submitting the questions. Feel free to reach out to us anytime to ask for more information, ask for more resources. We're trying to coordinate Alumni Speaker Series more like a monthly thing. So if you have any specific requests for any speakers or topic, please let us know so that we can better serve you. Thank you, Rudra, and Rudra put the email address in the chat too.
Yeah, just find me on LinkedIn. Find me on my email. I'm pretty reachable most times. And if I get to know you, I'll give you my phone number pretty easily. So, and then you can just call me and text me and we can talk. Yeah, I think I see a few familiar faces even in the attendees list based on people that came to the career fair. So it really helps seeing people that have done this or that keep touching base more often. Just reiterating the point that the more you talk to people, the more they remember you. But yeah, thank you guys for having me. This has been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you,
I
Rudra.
spoke a lot, but hopefully there was some valuable insight in there just based on my experience. I love being a part of this whole panel thing. Great job, Abhi and Yuka and Arya. This has been amazing inside as well. Thank you for
Thanks
just
so much for
considering
for
me.
taking
Yeah,
time out of your
Thank you
schedule,
very
and
much.
yeah.
you're going to go
Anytime.
down in history as our first speaker. So,
Amazing.
um,
Yeah.
but thanks everyone. And Yuka, any concluding words?
No, sorry we went over time.
Yeah,
But thank you very much for attending. Thank you very much for being here. And this one will be on the DePauw website somewhere, so
yeah.
we'll definitely announce that so that
It'll
you
be
can
on
always
the
go back and
ISAA
watch.
website. Yeah, it'll be on the ISAA webpage on DePauw's website, and we'll probably put it on our social media and other stuff. So please follow us. I know Ray is doing a great job with Instagram, and we have a new student as well. So
So yeah.
a lot of exciting things to come.
And thank you, Zaida, for coordinating this.
Yep.
Yeah. So we'll see you guys soon.
Right. Bye,
Bye.
Rudra.